Welcome to Shift, everybody. If you're new, you can scan this QR code or the one in the back of the welcome area over there. If you fill out our Connect card, we'll send you some free Opus coffee. And now you have the option of enjoying that cup of Joe with Joe. In person or on Zoom, you'll be able to ask any questions about who we are and what we do. You guys, have you seen how much change we brought in? Keep it up, Shift. Last year, we were able to feed 75 families. This year, we want to feed even more. Either bring in your change or scan the code. Either way, 100% of all the proceeds are going straight to those families. Shift. October is one of the best months of the year because we get to be a part of some pretty cool things. On October 6th, we're going to be marching in the homecoming parade at UF. We'll be marching with some other progressive organizations. On October 21st, we're going to be back at Gainesville's Pride Festival. We'll be tabling just like we did last year. And then October 29th, we're going to be having our next Serve Day with Rebuild. The Serve Day is the only one that's going to be on the website. You can scan this QR code to sign up and volunteer. For all the other stuff, check out our virtual campus or check out the email we sent last week. Because of the nature of those other events, we want to make sure it's as safe as possible for our volunteers and the event itself. All right, fellas, it's time we get to getting. Now it's time for week 1 of our new series, The Gospel According to Ted Lasso.
So I will say that I absolutely love Ted Lasso. The only bad part about the show is the fact that it only went 3 seasons. That was it, you know. And I think that it blew up like it did for a couple of reasons, like outside of the obvious, like excellent writing and like perfect casting and even better performances. The first one was from an article that I read some time ago, and I looked, I couldn't find it again, but basically what they said was that like we live in a really mean age. Politics is mean, social media is mean, all of these things are mean. There's a lot of anger, and there's some really good reasons for that, but when everything is that way, it can be really exhausting, right? I think that when it comes to this character, you know, he has this unyielding view of the goodness in people, right? And even when he struggles, and we, as the seasons go on, you kind of get to see behind the scenes, or behind the curtain a little bit, about how he deals with that. But even those things, he deals with it in such a good-natured way that, like, if you don't root for Ted Lasso, you're just, I don't know, you're just kind of dead inside.
You're Nate.
Yeah, in a sea of mean, Ted Lasso is like this oasis of nice. The second reason that I think Ted Lasso blew up like it did, it came to me recently. I was watching a commencement speech. I didn't recognize who the person was giving it, and I didn't see where the commencement speech was given. But the person talking was saying, if you want to look for somebody that's stupid, find somebody that's being cruel. Because he said that things like cruelty and pushing others not like you to the outside helped our ancient ancestors survive. But things that like empathy and kindness, they require an evolved brain, because those things didn't help us survive. Those were things that we had to learn so that we could be a better society. And I think that Ted Lasso, the whole character of the show, I think it appeals to our better nature. It reminds us that we're meant for one another, and it reminds us that kindness matters. I want to welcome everybody to Shift, whether you're in person or you're on the stream. If you're new and you're filling out that online Connect card, check that Me option with me, because I'd love to meet you. This is week 1 of a series I'm super excited about. It's The Gospel According to Ted Lasso. I love this show. I'm rewatching it again. I love it for the reasons that we mentioned before, but I love it because I just feel good when I watch it, right? Like when the episode's over, I just feel good. Now, if you haven't seen this show, it's fine. I just don't like you as much, but it's fine. It's whatever. It won't ruin anything. Like, you'll still be able to follow along with what we're talking about. There will be no spoilers with what we're doing, but we're going to show you a clip each week. And for those on the stream, you won't be able to see the clip. We'll put a link in in the comment section of YouTube. But our first clip is from season 1, episode 8, and in it, Rebecca, the team owner, asked Ted to go with her to a local pub to meet 2 sisters that are minority owners of the club itself. And so they go to this local pub, and it turns out that Rebecca's ex-husband, Rupert, bought the minority stakes and showed up, just kind of surprising them, shows up with his pregnant and much, much younger fiance, Bex, and decides to tell her that, hey, we've got the minority stakes now, so I'm going to show up at each match, and I'm going to tell you, how horrible a job you're doing, just basically to torture her. So Ted proposes a bet over a game of darts and says, if you win, Rupert, then you can create the lineup for the last match. If I win, you don't get to come anywhere near the owner's box while Rebecca is the owner, right? That sets it up. Go ahead and show the clip. Now, we all know people like Ted describes, people that are judgmental and think that they have everything figured out. And because they believe that they have all the right answers, any questions outside of that is a challenge to their system. They are the people that dismiss you when you dare to question the status quo. They're the ones that will label us heretical for believing that God is bigger than any of our theology. They're the ones that threaten you with eternal conscious torment because you would rather include than exclude. According to the article, How Do Thoughts and Emotions Affect Health? Found on the University of Minnesota's website, it says this: negative attitudes can create chronic stress, which upset the body's hormone balance, depletes the brain's chemicals required for happiness, and damages the immune system. Chronic stress can actually decrease our lifespan. Poorly managed or repressed anger is also related to a slew of health conditions such as hypertension, cardiovascular disease, digestive disorders, and infections. Judgmental people are miserable. They make life miserable for everyone around them, and according to science, live short, miserable lives. Now, in Matthew's account of Jesus' life, in chapter 6, the author records Jesus saying this. Can you go ahead and show that? It says, if your eyes are windows into your body, if you open your eyes wide in wonder and belief, your body fills up with light. If you live squinty-eyed in greed and distrust, your body is a dank cellar. If you pull the blinds on your windows, what a dark life you will have. That's the Message version. And now, I don't know if Jesus is talking about the people that we're referring to, but it certainly applies. And reading this, I think about this older gentleman by the name of Russell. Russell was at our very first ministry up in northern Missouri, and Russell loved to complain. More than anything, he loved to complain. He would almost daily come up to the church building where, we're all like this captive audience, and he would just go grab a cup of coffee, plop down in one of our offices, and just complain. And most of the time, it had nothing to do with us. He just needed somebody to hear him complain about something. When we first took the ministry, and I was a student pastor. There were just a handful of students, and as we started implementing things, it began to grow. And to do youth group, they didn't have their own space. So the building that we were in had this basement, and there was nothing down there. So I started clearing out. I mean, there were rooms, but there wasn't anything down there. So I started clearing out a space for us to do an actual youth group. Well, as time went on, the youth group grew and grew, and it got to the point where I needed to tear down a wall between 2 large rooms to make one huge space for all the students. So one day I'm down there. It's like during the week I'm down there, and it was a big wall. So I'm just taking it down a little bit at a time. And he kind of just saunters down there with his cup of coffee, acting like he's inspecting the work or whatever. And he starts retelling the tale of when they built this wall and all of the people that were involved. and you know how difficult the process, how hard it was to put this wall up, you know, and he just wouldn't stop. And I just got sick and tired of it, and I finally just responded, huh, that's weird. Tearing it down is really easy. And I just wanted him to stop talking. Yeah, I just wanted him to stop talking, you know, because he couldn't see the fact that there were all these students showing up because they were being loved on and they were finding community, right? All he could see was something to complain about. When Christians go through life always seeing the negative, seeing death and sin and depravity, it warps their soul. It warps how they view people, and it creates darkness within them. They take that worldview and they'll claim that it's actually faith, that it's orthodoxy. They'll say that humans are born evil and deserving of eternal hell, and they'll call that good news. They'll say that this good news is created by a God that made this system, that all of humans are totally depraved, all of humanity totally depraved, and then that he sent his son so that he could murder his son in your place to somehow satisfy his own bloodlust and justice. They'll say that the world is evil and getting worse, but that's okay because God is just going to burn it all anyway. They'll claim things like the church is being persecuted during a health crisis and that the government is lying about trying to save lives. Instead, it's trying to shut the doors of the church. There's always an enemy being created. There's always a caravan at the border, always somebody trying to steal your job, always somebody coming for the children. They'll justify murders and say, well, he shouldn't have run if he was innocent. They'll overlook horrid and illegal behavior of their leaders and the tangibly, demonstrably real harm being done to people because they want to legislate their version of holiness. And they'll look at you, who walked away from the evangelical church broken and beaten, and condemn you for it, but will be silent and not say a word about the abuse coming from the pulpit that pushed you out of the door. If you're always looking for the wrong in people, you're going to find it. If you're always looking for the bad things in life, you're going to find it. If you train your brain to only recognize the bad, that's all you're going to see. Listen to those words again of Jesus found in Matthew 6. If you live in squinty-eyed greed and distrust, your body is a dank cellar. If you pull the blind on your windows, what a dark life you will have. Did you know that in the Gospels, the 4 accounts of Jesus' life, Jesus asks 307 questions. 307 questions recorded. And of the 183 questions that he is asked, he answers with a direct response only 3 times. Almost always, when somebody asks Jesus a question, he responds with another question. And I think it's because that Jesus was genuinely curious and he lived his life in that curiosity. He approached life with that curiosity. Now, when we read it, we tend to Superman Jesus, right? Like he's all powerful and all of these things. But if there's any truth to be found in Scripture, the letter called Philippians that Paul writes, the early church leader Paul writes in chapter 2, tells us that Jesus didn't consider equality with God something to just be like grabbed and snatched away. That he emptied himself of all of that. And basically that he just became a human. So if there's any truth there, Jesus is fully human, right? He lived with a curiosity that endeared him to just everyday people. It infuriated the religious elites, but the regular people loved him. And it's because curiosity tends to rub the rigid and fixed the wrong way. Now, both of my kids are and were very curious, but my son, that kid takes it to another level. He jokes around now, like you'll say something, and he'll just be like, "Why?" And then you'll answer it, and he'll be like, "Why?" And he literally says it like that. "Why? Why? Why?" And you just get to a point where it's just like, "I don't know. Why? Google it, man." And it's a joke now, but he was that way when he was little. He wanted to know everything, and he wanted to know why it was that way. one of my favorite things that I got to do with Brock was that every morning on the way to school, he would sit in the back seat and he would have like his little iPad or my phone, and he would watch a video from the YouTube channel Brightside. And for those that don't know what Brightside is, it's the science channel, and it's geared towards kids. It's geared to like getting their, their gears rolling, creative juices flowing, and they ask questions like, what would happen if the sun disappeared? What would happen if the Earth stopped rotating, or rotated in another direction? Now, they also have like regular science questions too, but they're all designed to get that conversation going. And every weekday morning for years, we drove to school and he would watch and I would listen to this video, and then we would talk about it. It was one of my favorite things that we did together. And I love his curious brain until he won't stop asking why. And then I'm like, my God, I'm kidding. Not really. Now, according to the article, how are curious people viewed and how do they behave in social situations? You can find that in the National Library of Medicine. It says this: a curious personality was linked to a wide range of adaptive behaviors, including tolerance of anxiety and uncertainty, positive emotional expressiveness, initiation of humor and playfulness, unconventional thinking, and a non-defensive, non-critical attitude. Now, look again at that passage in Matthew chapter 6, verse 22. Your eyes are windows into your body. If you open your eyes wide in wonder and belief, your body fills up with light. Now, if you've been here for any amount of time, it's no secret that I have spent a lot of that time and energy into publicly deconstructing harmful teachings and attitudes found in the American church. The problem with that is that I spent so much time tearing things down. That's all I was seeing. That's all I was seeing. My brain was constantly thinking about those negative things, and it was incredibly draining. You can ask my wife. I wasn't looking into things with this eyes wide in wonder. And I'm not saying that it has to be this way for everybody, but for me, I needed to rebuild something, but I needed to rebuild something that I could trust. So I reached out and I met with a friend by the name of Steve Price. He leads Trinity United Methodist Church here in town alongside his wife. And Steve pointed something out to me that I was doing that I rail against on the regular. And it was that I was trying to rebuild a theology that had all of the answers, but just like on the other side, right? I had kept this rigid, judgmental, fundamentalist framework and was applying it in a different perspective. I had deconstructed all of the beliefs and teachings, but not the structure. And it was that rigidity, that fundamentalism that was doing immense harm to my soul. Instead of filling my body with light, I had drawn those shades and was quickly becoming that musty, dank cellar. So I did what I knew to do. Like I did what I always do. I read. But this time, instead of like reading against something, I started reading with curiosity. And what I did was I began searching other traditions to see how they approach God. I'm currently reading a book called Sacred Earth, Sacred Soul by the author who wrote the Celtic benediction book that I use for my morning prayers and meditations. His name is J. Philip Newell. And the book talks about the Celtic Christian tradition that often came into opposition with the Holy Roman Empire. Each chapter is a different teacher within that Celtic tradition and what they taught. And it talks about how they view creation as sacred, as God in, and that God is in all things and sustains all things. They see creation as holy and sacred, and because of that, we should live in harmony with each other and with the earth. And it's because of those beliefs and teachings that the empire labeled their prophets as heretical. Because if creation is good and sacred, and if people are good and sacred, then they aren't something to be controlled or exploited, but something to be honored, loved, and revered. And that spoke to me. That speaks to me. to know that there is this whole tradition that from the very start said that the deepest parts of me are not opposed to God, but are of God, has been life-giving. To be able to retrain my brain, to see the sacred in every person, and to realize that all of creation is an expression of the divine, like throws open those blinds, right? And floods the darkest parts of my heart with that light. Is there brokenness in humanity? Absolutely, yes. You would have to be willfully ignorant to say otherwise. But is that the deepest truth about us? No. No, it's not. Think about our growing understanding of creation and the universe. There's a passage in Psalm, I didn't write it, or I didn't have it up. It's in Psalm 19, and it talks about that the heavens declare the glory of God, that the skies are the works of his hands. Now, the universe is almost infinite and growing, and we are discovering planets and galaxies and quirks that defy our understanding and are actually sometimes outside our understanding of the laws of nature. We live on this little rock, this speck of dirt in this vastness of space that spins at roughly 1,000 miles per hour, that orbits a star at 67,000 miles per hour, or 18.5 miles per second, within a galaxy that spins at 130 miles per second. And all of that occurring while we hurtle through space at 1.3 million miles per hour. All of that is happening as you sit here right now. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to inhale deeply through the nose. You know what you just did? You were breathing plant breath. You're breathing plant breath, and plants are breathing human breaths. What is that? There is this complex creativity and mind-numbing beauty woven into everything. So if the heavens do declare something about who God is, and if the skies proclaim God's works, and if we are made in the image of that God, then it is in our very nature to be creative, to be curious. Because within each of us, we hold the capacity for the things that we just described. With all this creativity around us, how dare we spend one moment of it in squinty-eyed judgment? Every person you ever encounter is made in the image of the divine. Every inch of the earth you walk is holy. Every second of our existence is a sacred miracle. In her book, A Year of Biblical Womanhood, author and theologian Rachel Held Evans says this: faith isn't about having everything figured out ahead of time. Faith is about following the quiet voice of God without having everything figured out ahead of time. And I think that is the perfect definition of staying curious. We're never going to have all of this figured out. I mean, how puny would God or the universe be if we could wrap our minds around it? And I'm learning that it's okay to not have all of the answers. It doesn't mean that you stop asking questions. It just means that those questions are going to lead to even better questions. And that's okay. Actually, it's more than okay. It's called growth. It's when we stop asking questions, when we stop being curious, that we become rigid and inflexible. That's when we pull down the blinds and live squinty-eyed with greed and mistrust. And as Jesus puts it, what a dark life you'll have. So don't stop asking questions. When you come across something that you don't understand or maybe you don't agree with, instead of immediately shutting down, meet it with curiosity, with, isn't that interesting? We should model our life after that of Jesus, who never met a question he didn't like. Curiosity is in our DNA, so don't deny that nature. Live fully in that human nature. Your eyes are windows into your body. If you open your eyes in wonder and belief, your body fills up with light. Stay curious. Keep your eyes open. So every week, if you've been here any amount of time, we end with a time of reflection instead of an altar call. And so what we want you to do is to check in with yourself and with your emotions and with your head. and with what you heard during the talk. So the band will come back up and they'll play, so it's not a awkward silence. And we'll turn down the lights to kind of create like a space for you to do this. I'll ask a few questions to kind of guide that process, and then at the end I'm going to pray for all of us. And once that's over, everybody, anybody who's willing to, is invited to participate in communion. And that table is open to all who would come, because for us, communion is a reminder of what Jesus lived and died for. So that first question that I have for you, time for some real self-awareness. I'm not asking you to raise your hand or say anything out loud. I just want you to be honest with yourself. In your life, currently, where are you judgmental? In your life currently, where are you curious? And why are you those things? How do you, where you're at, specifically begin to let go of those rigid frameworks and start asking better questions? What does it say about Jesus that he asked so many questions and answered most questions with another one? And if that's who we're supposed to be like, then why doesn't the church teach us to be like that? So for our final question, write it down, open up the Notes app, take a note. I want you to name one tangible way you can start to be more curious today. Think of a way to be more curious and then start doing that. Let's pray. Creator, we come before you in this sacred space, open to the boundless gift of curiosity that you have placed within our hearts. And in the spirit of curiosity, we seek to unravel the mysteries of faith, to question, to doubt, and to discover anew. Grant us the courage to explore the depths of our belief, to challenge tradition when necessary, and to embrace the evolving nature of our faith. Let our curiosity be a beacon of enlightenment, guiding us toward a deeper understanding of your divine presence. May our questions be a pathway to wisdom, and may our doubts lead us to a stronger, more authentic faith. Help us to remember that in seeking, we may find, in asking, we may receive, and in searching, we may uncover hidden truths that have been waiting to be revealed. Bless our journey of curiosity, God, as we deconstruct and reconstruct our faith, drawing nearer to the essence of your love and grace. And I pray that we would remember how Jesus lived with open-eyed wonder and awe, and that we would never live seeing the world through greedy, mistrustful eyes. Thank you for his life and resurrection power. Amen.